Sandor, welcome to the Leanpub launch video for the C++ interview book. I was wondering if you could take a moment to talk to all of us a little bit about yourself and who you are and what you do and what your book is about and who it's
Thank you, Len. Thank you for the invitation. Well, who am I? I'm a C++ developer. I started out 13 years ago. And when I became a developer, before development, I was in operations, database operations. But when I joined a new company to become a C++ developer, I also moved to a new country. I moved from Hungary to France, and it was quite difficult because on the one hand, I changed countries, and at the same time, I also changed craft basically, and I had to learn so many new things about life, about my profession, about everything, and it was a great team. I would say one of my best teams ever, and people around me helped me so much. I didn't know anything, basically anything about C++, and it was I'd say it was a tough journey, but they helped me every day through code reviews or just fixing some compilation issues. And when I asked, okay, but why do we have to do this? Why do we have to do that? Uh, Everyone did their best to help me understand things better. And at that moment, I said, okay, I'll try to pay this forward and I'll be able to do that because, well, that's the right thing to do. And a few years after, I started my blog, which is mostly about C++, not only, but mostly, especially I would say for the last 8 years. I post on a weekly basis again, mostly about C++. And then little by little, I realized that, well, maybe I could collect some of these ideas and publish them as a book. And that's when I found Leanpub as a great platform for technical writers. And first, I wrote about some really small topics. So I published some 40, 50 pages books about how to use const in C++ or how to use C++ concepts, which is a new thing with C++ 20. And I also realized that, well, it's tough to prepare for an interview. And I've been on both sides, preparing for interviews, but also interviewing others and also reworking the interview process of the company I used to work for. And said, well, okay, why not collect some of the ideas I already shared on my blog in a format of an email course. And I had the daily C++ interview, which was basically an email course, but I collected all the answers and published it as the daily C++ interview. But it was not really a book. It was a collection of answers to questions that I shared through emails. But it went surprisingly well. And no, it's been, I think, like 5 years I published it. I realized that, well, we had two new standards in C++. Also, the interview landscape changed a lot, mostly during the last 2 years, I would say, with the rise of LLMs and agentic coding. And I decided to completely revamp that book, and that's why I didn't give the name like Daily C++ Interview 2.0 or something, but I decided to go with a complete new structure and a new name.
Yeah, thanks very much for sharing that really great story and the kind of evolution of your work over time and how you've changed and where you've lived has changed, but also how things in the profession has changed and the things that you've learned. It's very interesting. One thing about the book that's so great is it's very comprehensive. I mean, you talk about a 100-day study schedule with built-in spaced repetition, which of course is a very important part of learning. Um, and you talk at the very beginning. My joke about these interviews is it goes against my nature to have short conversations,
Mhm.
but that's what we try to do. So the only question I have for you is something you addressed right at the beginning, so you can talk about it in this interview, which is what has AI changed? So you were talking about it a little bit there, but when it comes to the interview process and getting a job, and then the job you're going to be doing as a C++ developer, what has AI changed so far?
So that's a that's a deep question, and it's very interesting because I think that many of us interviewers as well, we are struggling with this. Like you can look up information so quickly, so easily. Like, what shall we ask? In what format should we ask those questions? And something that definitely changed, I, in my opinion, is that nobody really is interested anymore in like, can you tell me how to use a specific standard library function? It's not really interesting because most probably you you will not write those specific lines of code. An agent will do that for you. But what's interesting is that you have to ask for that algorithm, for example, in that specific scenario, and you understand why. You understand what it does and what are its constraints. I think this deeper knowledge is more important. For example, in interviews I've been conducting or just overseeing, we often say like, okay, don't worry about a specific function from the standard library. Like you don't know how to write the syntax. You don't know which parameters go in which positions. We don't mind. Just tell us what you want to use, and we'll help you. We know that you would Google it up or you would ask Claude, whatever. We can help you with that, and just share your reasoning why you want to use it and what are the implications. So I think that especially in uh, in senior roles, that's also what I have more experience with interviewing. Uh, there is there is this move towards way deeper knowledge than than before. Even before that was there and it was expected, but probably we didn't have the time to dig that deep. But
That
now we don't care about the surface level, I would say. To me, that's the biggest change.
Yeah, thanks very much for sharing. That's really great. I've seen, interviewing Leanpub authors who lots of whom write technical books and about technical
Mhm,
things and do come from these senior technical roles. I think that one of the lessons that's trying to be, paid forward or passed on to, a new generation of people is like depth of understanding is the most important. It was always there, as you say, but like
mhm.
one thing you say in your section about it is the ability to read code and understand code has become so much more kind of a higher priority and stuff like that in interview selection processes and stuff like that. And in your book, the C++ interview book, you give people what they need to be prepared for interviews these days. Sandor, thank you so much for taking the time to write the book and for taking the time to do this launch video with me today. And thank you so much for using Leanpub as a platform for distributing it to people.
Well, thank you so much for having me here and also for providing this great platform. I think it's really a win-win.
Thanks.